It's clear that the Chicago Bulls are going to push forward with Zach LaVine and Vooch on the roster. We're going to be talking about if this is a good thing for the Chicago Bulls and what can the Chicago Bulls do to continue to help rebuild and retool this roster. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and this is another episode of Bulls Digest. Before we go ahead and jump into it, I want to let you guys know that 77% of you guys that watch the videos are not subscribed to the channel. Make sure you mash that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with the latest news and happenings around your Chicago Bulls. And without further ado, guys, let's jump into the topic of the day here, which is how can the Bulls help rebuild? All right, guys. And so, look, this comes on the heels of a tweet that is out there, and it is from Joe Cali, who essentially he covers the Chicago Bulls, and he raises a big question here because he wants to go ahead and reiterate that there has been no market for Zach LaVine or Vooch, and that the Chicago Bulls do have a top 10 protected pick right now, and that the Chicago Bulls right now as it stands have a lot of young players that need minutes, and that Zach LaVine and Vooch, in fact, would get in the way of that, guys. And so this is the exact tweet that came out here, again, from Joe Cali. And he's saying that, look, man, both veterans are projected to block playing time for young players. And this is what the Chicago Bulls want to do, is go ahead and get consistent minutes for the young players that are coming up here. So, look, we are in an interesting situation, guys. And, this is tough. This is a tough situation because if you've been looking at the Summer League, you've been looking at Modest Buzelis, who has played well. I think that Julian Phillips has played particularly well. And I also think that Adama Sanogo has played well, guys. And so either way you look at it, I think that these young players do deserve some playing time, right? And I think that this is a great point that is brought up right now that, yes, LaVine and Vooch are currently in the way possibly of the growth that is going to be needed in order to push this team forward, which I think it brings us to a little bit of a frustration point, I think, for the Chicago Bulls fan base, because look, going into this thing, we knew in the offseason that, hey, one of the main pieces that we had to move on from was Zach LaVine, right? We knew that Zach LaVine had to be moved off of because we were looking to go into a different direction. And it's frustrating because AK has not made that move thus far. And when we look at the fact that there were several deals out there, and not just talking about the 15 proposed trades that were out there, but there were other trades before this time that perhaps the Chicago Bulls could have made some moves to get rid of Zach LaVine. I'm not sure about Vooch, but at least Zach LaVine here. And that would have helped free up some playing time. We could have possibly made some decisions about Lonzo Ball before we got to this point as well. So, this is one of those situations where you have to say, look, the Chicago Bulls, in fact, did this to themselves. And this is what happens when you are not a proactive team, right? You have to trade guys when they are at their highest value. Yes, I know you can't clearly necessarily see the future at that point in time, but I think that, if the Chicago Bulls were thinking a little bit more forward, perhaps they would not be into this situation, guys. And so that brings us into what AK had to say about the youth movement as well. And this is what he had to say Sunday, after a Summer League game when he was speaking to reporters in Las Vegas, guys. He essentially said that, look, in terms of the youth movement, he says, look, we have a lot of experienced young guys that are moving in the right direction. And he said, I think that changes are happening right now, and it's going to help us build for the future, right? He said it's still not a final product as well, right? And so he also admits to the fact that the formula that they had before did not work, guys. And so, this just brings us into a tough situation again, like I said. I mean, AK clearly acknowledges the fact that we need to get younger. He's clearly acknowledging the fact that our past group didn't work, but he's also putting us in a tough situation. And, by not moving on from Vooch and Zach LaVine at this point in time, it's going to get tougher, right? Because the Zach LaVine and the Chicago Bulls franchise relationship, that's kind of weird. And then it's like, we keep hearing that there's no market for Zach LaVine at this point in time, which is tough, and which might be true because look, he's coming off an injured season. So I mean, it's not like teams are going to be very invested in going and trading for a guy that is having an injured season, or had an injured season, excuse me. And then when you look at Vooch, I mean, Vooch is a player that can play for you right now, but at this point in time, because we've hung on to him and now he's starting to show that the numbers are dropping. He had one of his lowest percentages from the three-point land last year. So, I mean, that's another thing that's going against Vooch. It's like, people are looking at this statistically and the numbers just don't add up for what you would be trading for. So this is a tough situation for the Chicago Bulls, no doubt. And I just think that, the Bulls are in a situation where they need to go ahead and they just need to go ahead and find a way to move on from Vooch and LaVine in order to get these guys game time, guys. Because look at this. Look at what we are seeing out of the Summer League from Modest Buzelis right now. And you have to ask yourself, do you really want to slow down this production? I mean, look at this, guys. I mean, here's a guy, look at this athleticism coming down, talking stuff, dunking on people, guys. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we have seen through 3 games. And at this point in time, I think it's clear that with Zach LaVine on the roster, more than likely, Buzelis is probably going to come off the bench, which is not a bad thing. But, his natural role probably is going to be a starter. And I'd argue that you're probably going to be getting there quicker with his growth and getting to the end point where you want to go as a franchise by going ahead and starting Buzelis, guys. And so, that just brings us to another point that makes this situation even more awkward, guys. And this is something that Will Goblet said, and he's on CHGO. You can check him out on the podcast and everything else, guys. And look, he was saying that, look, at this point in time, the Bulls aren't looking to put any assets on LaVine right now. And, he's also talking about the fact that we do have the top 10 protected pick, but the focus is building a young group that can be the foundation for the next great Bulls team. And he's saying, look, if they make the play-in or the playoffs with this group, it will have been because some of their young players are taking a step forward, guys. And look, we're just at that point in time that we have got to let these guys go ahead and take the step forward. I mean, it's already proven that the success that we had using our prior group is not the answer for us. And I'm just like, if we're going to be in a play-in situation anyway, we might as well go ahead and let that youth movement start up fully, guys. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you guys want to go out there and have the team constructed as is with LaVine and Vooch starting and taking away minutes from our younger players? Or do you think that AK should be on the phone as of right now trying to move LaVine and Vooch out of there so we can start to play these young players and continue to get this youth movement going, guys? So let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. As usual, even though we have not made some trades and some moves that we should have made, not just this offseason, but probably a couple off seasons ago, I'm still saying go Bulls. And as usual, man, I'll see you on the next one. Peace, 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 peace.